Well, hello, welcome once again to Stuff and Things, where I like to talk about stuff and occasionally even things. I'm your good friend Bradley, and today is a very pleasant Sunday Stuff and Things. And on this pleasant Sunday Stuff and Things, we have many stuff and things to talk about, including upcoming videos, things that you can look forward to on Stuff and Things and Stuff and Things Plays. I'm going to talk about that daylight savings time poll that I posted on YouTube. I also did a poll on Twitter and one on Patreon as well. We were talking about the fact that the Senate was trying to vote to make daylight savings time permanent in the United States. I had some views on it, some fairly strong views, and I was asking you your opinion out there, and many of you responded. So I want to get into that because I find it pretty interesting. We will talk about whether or not I should review blends that I don't like. And then we will, of course, have your feedback, and I think one question at least, in hashtag askstuffandthings. So let's get into it. All right, so upcoming videos. What can you look forward to on Stuff and Things and Stuff and Things Plays? Well, the reason I'm recording this video here in my home office is because I just did a video about guitar picks and how you hold your guitar pick, because this has been a huge source of frustration, angst. I've been having like an existential crisis, a crisis of confidence in how I hold my guitar pick, what kind of guitar pick I should be using, quote, should, because there are a lot of internet experts out there who tell you what they think you should be doing. And I kept altering the way I was using my pick. I was altering the way I was holding it, the way, or the pick that I was using as well. And some of those things were good, some of those things were beneficial, and some of those things were me sort of trying to shove myself into a certain hole. Phrasing. Anyway, the frustration kind of boiled over, and I think I had a bit of a breakthrough, and I talk about that in the video that's going to be posting this Wednesday on Stuff and Things. And then, of course, we have Elden Ring continuing. That series, I think the series is good, but the game is freaking amazing, and I absolutely love it. That's I think for another couple weeks, it'll be every Monday and Friday on Stuff and Things Plays, and then Deathloop, until that series finishes, is every Wednesday and Saturday. So please check those out. They're both great games. Elden Ring is probably the game of the generation, one of the best games I've ever played in my entire life, and I absolutely love it. So check that out. And then we may get into a blend. Maybe we'll talk about that when I talk about whether or not I want to review blends that I don't like. But there's a blend here that I've been sampling lately. We'll get into it. It's interesting. All right, so last week I talked about the fact that the US Senate unanimously passed a resolution that would make daylight savings time permanent in the United States. That's a little misleading though, because apparently the fact that it was unanimously passed, it didn't actually go to a vote. They just had the resolution, whatever you call it, on the floor of the Senate, and as long as nobody objected to it, it went through. That's basically what happened. Now there's a little bit more talk. They're trying to get it to go to the House now. The House would still have to approve it in order for it to pass. And there does seem to be some conversation bubbling up. Some House members have mentioned, well, haven't we tried this before and people didn't like it? The American Medical Association, or was it the American Sleep Association? I can't remember exactly which acronym, but they were coming out and saying this actually isn't very healthy for people. Standard time would be healthier. I've read some articles where people have brought up some of the same concerns that I brought up when we were talking about this. So I thought it would be fun to put a poll. I did a poll on YouTube, and we had quite a few respondents, actually. There were 481 votes. I did one on Twitter as well, and one on Patreon. They had far fewer votes, but the percentages of responses were about the same. So I have to admit, I was a little bit leading when I did this poll, because I said, you know, the Senate has voted to approve permanent daylight savings time. I think this is a bad idea. And I talked briefly about why I think it's a bad idea, but then I said, what's your opinion? So obviously, if I were actually a pollster, that would be not a very good way of conducting a poll, but I wanted to present my side, because I think so many people are so sick of their clocks moving back and forth that when they hear permanent, they're like, oh, that's great, that's what I want. But I think that a lot of people haven't thought about some of the unintended consequences of permanent daylight savings time as opposed to permanent standard time. So I just wanted to broach that. But I asked, would you rather have permanent daylight savings time where we put our clocks ahead 1 hour, it's darker in the morning, lighter in the night, year round? Would you rather have permanent standard time where we never change our clocks. Our clocks are just the same, and they more closely match what the natural world is doing around us. So at noon, the sun should be pretty much directly overhead, which is what I like. That's what I like. And then I also said, should we just keep it as it is, where we spring ahead in the spring and fall back an hour in the fall? And so out of 481 votes, we had 22% voted for permanent daylight savings time. 57% voted for permanent standard time, and 22% voted to keep it as it is. So obviously, like I said, this is not a scientific poll, but from what I can gather, most people seem to kind of agree that daylight savings time being permanent is a bad idea, and most people would rather have permanent standard time. I think in general, people just don't want to move our clocks back and forth. They think it's ridiculous, and I agree. It's just, my body clock is so finely tuned, and this isn't something that I'm bragging about or anything, but you know, especially when we're on standard time, my eyes just pop open at 5:24 every single morning, or actually 5:22, because my alarm is set for 5:24, but my eyes pop open at 5:22. I think my body just knows I don't want to be woken up by the alarm, so let's just wake up on our own. And I get up, and I can get up that early. It's fine. I'm able to, I'm not groggy. I don't need the caffeine in order for me to be able to go about my day. And then at night, as it starts getting dark, I start getting drowsy and I want to go to bed. That's just kind of where I am. And I think that standard time very closely adheres to that. And frankly, you know, in the summertime when daylight savings time is most apparent, we already have so much more sun, depending on where you are as far as longitude. Right? No, latitude. Wherever you are, you know, Eastern or Northern Hemisphere or Southern Hemisphere, all that stuff makes a difference, but I just think it's a good idea, and most of you seem to agree. So, permanent standard time, that's the ticket. So recently, I cracked a tin open, and it's a blend that I've had for a while. It was one that Sutliff sent to me, because they just kind of randomly send me blends sometimes. And it is Hearth and Home Smoky Mountain. And I didn't know anything about it. I didn't look up anything about it. And I thought, well, maybe I'll do a first impressions video. But then I thought, maybe I'll just give it a try, see what I think. It's part of their Slow Age series. I can't remember if I've had any other blends from this series. I'm not totally sure. But I popped it open. First of all, the smell. There's something going on. There's a very food-like quality to the aroma here. It doesn't really smell like tea as much as I might like. Something kind of meaty, barbecue-y, but also very sweet. So I thought, okay, this is interesting. I filled a bowl, I tried it out, and I thought, ooh, I don't think I like this very much. And it made me wonder, should I be reviewing more blends that I don't like? And I'm not saying that this blend is just gone. I don't like this blend for sure, because I haven't had enough of it to really make that determination. But typically, if I review a blend on the channel, it's because I think I'm going to like it, so that's why I got it. And then if I do enjoy it, I'm much more inclined to want to review it and, you know, spread the word, let you know that, hey, this blend is good. It's worth trying out. And I've had some people actually complain saying, well, almost every blend you review on the channel you recommend. How could that possibly be? Well, it's because if I don't really like a blend, I don't feel like reviewing it most of the time. But I'm curious to know, are there those of you out there who would prefer me to include more blends that I don't like in reviews? Because to me, you could just look at it like, if I've reviewed a blend, chances are it's probably going to be pretty good, or at least I think it's pretty good. And so it's not as though I'm artificially bumping up my feelings about all these different blends. It's just those are the blends I happen to review, the ones that I think I'll probably like. So let me know in the comments below. I'm curious to know what you guys would like to see. Now, we have a lot of feedback, especially about the daylight savings time thing. That seemed to have really struck a nerve with a lot of people, and we had a lot of people chiming in. I can't read all of the feedback, obviously, because there's just too much, but I'll read quite a few out to you, and you'll see the general mood of most of the comments that we had. So first of all, we'll start with a question though. This is via YouTube. Oh, wait. This is hashtag askstuffandthings. Remember, if you would like to ask me a question and have it answered on the Sunday Stuff and Things, tweet at SATBradley with the hashtag askstuffandthings. You can also leave comments on my YouTube videos with questions, and I will try to answer those on the Sunday Stuff and Things as well. And if you are a Patreon supporter, you can write to me on Patreon. So first, via YouTube, this is from Devin Michael. Devin says, "Hey Bradley, have you or will you get your hands on the new Steam Deck? I know this isn't your gaming channel, but I'd be interested in a review from you." So the Steam Deck, for those of you who don't know, is a new piece of hardware put out by, what are they called? They did Portal, they did all those games. Why can't I think of the name of them? They own Steam. Valve. Jeez, Valve. Valve runs Steam, which is the most popular way for people to purchase video games on their computer. Basically, most people's entire computer gaming library is on their Steam account. They have put out a portable handheld gaming device, which is basically a little mini gaming PC that you can use portably and play your Steam library on there. Am I interested in getting my hands on it? Not really. There aren't very many opportunities where I would need a PC game on the go. The Switch is perfect because it is the kinds of games that you can get on the Switch. Obviously, there are indie games and things that might show up on Steam as well, but the first-party Nintendo games and kind of the different, more interesting, quirky games that don't really need a high-powered PC or anything like that, that seems to just work really well on the Switch for me. If I'm gonna play a PC game, I'm probably gonna wanna play it at my computer. And I don't really need it on the go. It seems like it's cool. It seems like people think it's a pretty good piece of hardware, but it doesn't really appeal to me. I don't really see a need for it. Thanks for the question though. Okay, but now getting into the feedback. First, we have one from the video I posted, which proved to be quite popular, and I knew it would be, entitled, maybe provocatively, "Why You Shouldn't SAP," why you shouldn't smoke a pipe. And I knew that would press some buttons, but I thought it was a pretty good video, and many of you actually liked it a lot. Got a lot of responses from that, but one from Protos Telos says, "Another reason not to get into the pipe hobby, lack of places to S. In my city, you can't S anywhere indoors, nor in parks or benches. So on rainy or windy days, it's usually a no-go." Yeah, it's really tough. Even in outdoor parks and stuff around here, you're not technically allowed to S your pee. So that is a ding against the hobby. Okay, so now we have the daylight savings time feedback, and there is a lot of it. And like I said, I'm just gonna go briefly through some of these. From Rob S. "I don't really care one way or the other. I just want us, the US, to pick one time and keep it." That was a common theme among a lot of the responses. From Nathan Einsig. "I'm all in favor of eliminating the time shifts each year, but we should adopt standard time. Keeping daylight savings time in perpetuity is absurd." I agree with you, Nathan. RJ Kozlowski. "Like you, I work in the trades." Yeah, that's a good, strong blue-collar name. "And agree 100% that we should be permanently on standard time. Double exclamation point. I agree, RJ." Next, from Joshua Smith. "I like the new posting time." Thank you, I'm glad you do. "I appreciate your comments on daylight savings time and the football quarterback and fans of the teams. Doesn't ownership care about their women fans? I think you might appreciate the essay How to Disagree by Paul Graham. The basic idea is we are communicating with more different people than ever, so disagreement is inevitable, and thus we ought to learn to do it well." Interesting, I'll look into that. Joshua, thank you for your feedback. Next, from Dave Dixon. "I live in Ohio, and during the winter, it's still going to get dark at 6 p.m., and it won't get light until 9 a.m. Politicians rarely listen to medical professionals, so we will probably get stuck with this monstrosity. When people hear daylight savings time, they equate it with the summer extended daylight because most people have never experienced during winter. I was in college back when they tried it in 74, 75, and it was not very pleasurable. I really like the early postings, especially on Sundays." Thanks for the feedback, Dave. Yeah, some of the people who actually were around in 74 and 75, most people did not seem to enjoy that when they tried permanent daylight savings time. Next from Fraser 1901, daylight savings time should have been abolished decades ago. So many ridiculously foolish things going on. Add this to the list. Hoping this bill fails too. Let's go to permanent standard time. From Michael Ham, I've been on the DST bandwagon, but you made a good point. I think the best scenario would be to choose a single time and stop changing the clocks twice a year. Since I'm in Southwest Ohio and not far from the central time zone, a lot of the reasons you want to stay on standard time are the same ones I'd want to stay on daylight savings. If we go standard, I want to change from Eastern to Central. Personally, I've never had a problem with getting up and going to work in the dark, but I hate coming home in the dark. I'm a teacher and I work indoors. So that's a point. Like, I probably wouldn't mind as much either, even though it is more difficult to wake up and be awake when it's dark, but I have to work in the dark. If it doesn't get light until 9 a.m., I have to work in the dark. And some people were saying, well, why don't you just shift your workday? Well, okay, but then, so now I'm working from like 9 o'clock to 6 o'clock, and then my evening is gone because no, let's just do what the earth is telling us to do. And I don't mean that in a weird mystical way, but the rotation of the earth and where the sun is in the sky. Let's do that. But I hate coming home in the dark. I'm a teacher and I work indoors, blah, blah, blah. I read that already. I'm also one person with one opinion when many matter. I wonder what the cost would be for your employer to switch your hours to align with the actual daylight and not a DST schedule. Yeah, that's what I just kind of mentioned. As in November, you start your workday an hour later and let the clocks do whatever they do. Again, like I said, I don't want to do that. I don't want to. We have a certain schedule in our lives. Like most people get off work around 5 o'clock. And we run errands, we do things like, just because we have all decided to be weird and pretend that the sun isn't where it is in the sky, then that means we all have to shift our schedule to align with it. It just doesn't make sense. The best argument you make is in dealing with health and the circadian rhythms. My perspective from the lower Midwest puts us with a different amount of daylight around the year than the Pacific Northwest, so maybe choosing standard time is the best compromise, but for the love of God, let's just stop switching the clocks twice a year. And yes, that is the common theme, I think. We have Dr. Reg Monster. I'm not a morning person. I think daylight savings time year-round would be great because that would mean an extra hour of sun later in the day. Rather than sunset at 4:30 p.m., sunset would be at 5:30 p.m. I mean in the winter time. It would be less depressing for me and a lot of other people. And for the people who want daylight savings time permanent, that is the common refrain, is that, oh, it's less depressing. I don't really experience that. So I don't really know how that feels. I don't get depressed when it's dark. The only thing that the dark does is make it impossible for me to work when it's outside, and it makes it harder to get up in the morning, and the drive in the morning is kind of annoying. I understand that it gets dark at night, but it's wintertime, so that doesn't bother me. And in the summer, it's not dark early. So Pipeman 1958 says, daylight savings time is way better than standard time. How in the world would anyone want standard time? Give me more daylight at evening time all day. So there were a few people who did want the permanent daylight savings time, but for the most part, it seemed like people were into doing daylight or permanent standard time, stopping the whole clock changing nonsense and just getting on with our lives. So thank you all for the feedback. Please remember to send questions in to me. I love reading them out on the show, and I love getting your feedback as well. So thank you very much. But now it is time for the very best part of the show, and that is where I thank our Patreon supporters. This show is supported in large part by the people who generously give on Patreon. There is a link in the description box below if you would like to support the channels as well. It is much appreciated. But every week, we like to thank those who support the channels at $25 or more a month. People like Kirk Crompton, Private Eye, Glenn, Jason Buckner, Gloria Phillips, Ryan McFadden, Matt Marino, MDoftheNorth, and Kyle. And of course, the Maniacs, the crazy people who support the channels at $100 a month. People like Peter Straub, Bob Magee, David Gaudreau, and Ashes of the Phoenix. Thank you all so much for your support. Thank you all so much for watching, subscribing, liking, sharing, commenting, asking questions, all that good stuff. Please stay tuned for the guitar pick stuff that we're going to be talking about on Wednesday. I know that maybe not a lot of you are into the music stuff, but I think this is a kind of video that I would have liked to have seen maybe a year ago when I was going through this whole process, so hopefully it will help some people out there. And then, of course, Elden Ring and Deathloop on Stuff and Things Played. We have videos every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and Saturday at the moment. Maybe getting into Hearth and Home, Slow Age series, Smoky Mountain at some point, and lots of other good stuff in the hopper, waiting to be dispensed onto YouTube for you to view. But until next time, until we meet again, I've been your good friend Bradley. You've been the audience. This has been Stuff and Things on a very pleasant Sunday Stuff and Things. I'll see you later. Ow, I just kind of did something. Probably wasn't good. Yikes.